When most people think of Vikings, they imagine fierce warriors, longships, and distant raids. Yet behind the legendary image was a society where families lived, worked, and raised children in the harsh northern climate. Childhood in the Viking Age was both challenging and formative, shaped by traditions, environment, and the needs of the community. Far from being forgotten in the shadow of warriors, children played an important role in daily life and in carrying forward the values of their people. A Viking child's life began in uncertainty. Infant mortality was high, as disease, accidents, and the cold climate posed constant risks. Families often gave protective names or nicknames to children, hoping to shield them from misfortune. Some names carried meanings, like survivor or tough, meant to strengthen the child's chances of living a long life. Parents also placed great trust in protective charms and rituals, believing that the gods or ancestral spirits could help safeguard the young. From the very first days, children were part of the household or longhouse, where extended families lived together. These homes were filled with smoke from hearth fires, the scent of dried fish and cured meat, and the constant activity of daily work. A child grew up surrounded by relatives, workers, and sometimes even slaves. This environment meant that children learned early by watching and imitating, taking part in chores as soon as they were able. Education in the Viking Age was not structured as it is today. There were no schools in the modern sense, but children learned directly from their parents and elders. Girls were taught the skills needed to run a household, preparing food, weaving, sewing, and managing supplies. Boys learned farming, fishing, and the use of tools. For both genders, learning was practical and immediate, linked directly to survival. Children were expected to contribute to the household from an early age, whether by tending animals, collecting firewood, or helping with cooking. Despite the responsibilities, play was an essential part of childhood. Archaeologists have found toys carved from wood, bone, and cloth miniature swords, small ships, dolls, and board games. These objects show that Viking children, like children everywhere, enjoyed imagination and entertainment. Games often mirrored adult activities, mock battles, small-scale trading, or storytelling. Through play, children absorbed the values of courage, cooperation, and resourcefulness. Stories and sagas were central to their upbringing. Around the fire, children listened to tales of gods, giants, and heroes. These stories were more than entertainment, they were lessons in morality, courage, and loyalty. The myths of Odin, Thor, and Freya, along with heroic tales of warriors and kings, helped shape a child's worldview. From an early age, they learned that honor, strength, and family loyalty were guiding principles of life. Religion also played a role in childhood. Children took part in seasonal festivals, sacrifices, and rituals. These events connected them to the wider community and the divine forces believed to control nature and fate. A child might receive a small amulet, such as a Thor's hammer, to wear for protection. In some families, children were dedicated to the gods, expected to serve them in some way throughout their lives. These religious practices created a sense of belonging and connection to the spiritual world. Life in the North was harsh, and children were not shielded from its realities. They witnessed sickness, accidents, and sometimes violence. The long winters tested endurance, and hunger was a constant threat during poor harvests. These experiences forced children to grow resilient and adaptable. At the same time, the close-knit structure of Viking society provided support. Families relied on one another, and children were taught to respect elders, contribute to the household, and prepare for the roles they would one day inherit. In Viking communities, childhood was not a long period of protected innocence. Instead, it was a brief stage of preparation for adult responsibilities. By the time a child reached the age of 12, they were often considered young adults capable of making significant contributions to the household and community. While play and imagination colored their early years, the demands of survival in a challenging environment ensured that children matured quickly. Through toys, games, chores, and stories, Viking children were shaped into the next generation of farmers, traders, explorers, and homemakers. Their upbringing reflected the values of a society that prized strength, resilience, and honor, while also recognizing the importance of family and tradition. Though separated from us by centuries, the children of the Viking Age remind us that even in the midst of a warrior culture, the bonds of family and the innocence of youth played a vital role in shaping the world of the North. As Viking children grew older, their lives became increasingly shaped by work and preparation for the future. The transition from play to responsibility was gradual, but by adolescence, most were already contributing to the household. In a society built on survival, every member had to play a role, and children were no exception. For boys, the path usually led toward farming, craftsmanship, or seafaring. Farming was the backbone of Viking life, and boys learned early how to till the soil, care for animals, and manage harvests. Fishing and hunting added to their training, teaching patience and endurance while providing food. Some boys were also prepared for the life of a warrior. Though not every Viking became a raider, martial skills were respected, and boys practiced with wooden swords and shields. Wrestling and physical games built strength, while sagas of great fighters inspired them to value courage and loyalty. Still, many remained farmers or traders, only taking up arms to defend their homes. Girls also followed a demanding path. From an early age, they learned to spin, weave, and sew, skills essential in the cold northern climate. Weaving was highly respected, since cloth was not only necessary at home but also valuable in trade. Girls practiced food preservation, such as drying fish and storing grains, ensuring families could survive long winters. They were also trained to manage households, direct servants or workers, and even negotiate trade if men were away. This practical education prepared them for the possibility of becoming widows or leaders of their households. Some sagas even tell of women who defended their homes or joined voyages, suggesting that daughters were not always limited to domestic roles. Religion continued to shape their growth. Older children joined seasonal celebrations such as Yule, Midsummer, and harvest feasts. These gatherings involve rituals, storytelling, and offerings to the gods. Participation taught loyalty to family and respect for divine powers. Amulets and charms often mark this stage of life. A boy might carry Thor's hammer, while a girl wore pendants, symbolizing fertility or prosperity. Education went beyond practical chores. Storytelling and oral tradition taught law, history, and morality. Adolescents were expected to memorize genealogies, sagas, and customs. In a society with limited writing, memory and recitation were critical skills. A young person who could recall family history or speak in public earned respect and influence. Social life also shaped Viking youth. Boys and girls met during markets, festivals, and gatherings. Friendships, rivalries, and early romances often began there. Marriage usually came earlier than in modern times, with many young people betrothed in their mid-teens. Matches were arranged for alliances and property, but sagas also hint at marriages made for affection. For many young women, marriage was both duty and opportunity, granting them authority within a household. The shift to adulthood was not marked by one ceremony, but by responsibility. A boy who could manage a farm, build a boat, or fight alongside men was treated as grown. A girl who could run a household, weave for trade, and keep the family supplied was likewise seen as mature. By 12 to 15 years of age, most Viking children were considered adults in training, if not adults already. Despite the demands of their world, youth was not without joy. Adolescents competed in games, sang songs, and listened to poetry recited by skalds. During festivals, they danced, laughed, and tested their skills against one another. Even in a culture known for toughness, there was space for play, creativity, and moments of happiness. Growing up in the Viking Age meant balancing work, learning, and play in preparation for a demanding life. Their upbringing reflected resilience, honor, and loyalty, ensuring each generation could face the challenges of the North. The values they absorbed through chores, stories, and rituals shaped not only their own futures, but also the enduring legacy of Viking society. By their teenage years, Viking children were already stepping into the adult world. Responsibilities grew quickly, but so did their sense of identity, honor, and duty to family. Childhood in the North was not long, yet it was full of lessons that shaped the next generation. One of the most important teachings was family heritage. Genealogy mattered deeply to the Vikings, and children learned to recite ancestors' names and stories. Remembering lineage connected them to the past and gave them a sense of duty to uphold family honor. Honor itself was central in Viking society. Boys were taught that courage and loyalty mattered as much as strength, while girls learned that wisdom and resourcefulness protected the household. From sagas and tales, young people absorbed these values until they became guiding principles. Preparation for adult roles also included learning trade and travel. Markets were lively places where youth observed bargaining, weighing silver, and valuing goods. Boys practiced negotiation, while girls sometimes joined, preparing for the possibility of managing property. In coastal regions, boys might join short voyages, learning seafaring and navigation. These experiences broadened their skills, preparing some for future expeditions. At home, girls trained for leadership within the household. They learned to manage food supplies, care for livestock, and oversee workers or servants. A capable woman ensured survival, and daughters were expected to inherit this responsibility. Both boys and girls thus prepared for authority, though in different spheres. Religion continued to shape their lives. Older children joined rituals more actively, helping with offerings or preparing feasts. Some learned simple runes, not only as symbols, but as charms for luck or protection. Religion gave young Vikings security and identity, linking them to gods and traditions, and reinforcing the unity of the community. Life, however, was harsh. Illness, accidents, and hard labor often ended childhood early. Many adolescents married in their mid-teens or began running households. Others joined voyages or took up arms at an age that seems very young today. Viking society required resilience, and those who survived carried both skills and scars into adulthood. Despite the demands, youth also had joy. Festivals were moments of celebration, with singing, dancing, athletic contests, and storytelling. Such events built friendships and memories, balancing the struggles of northern life. Even in a culture known for toughness, there was space for laughter and creativity. Overall, Viking childhood was short but full of meaning. Children absorbed practical skills, traditions, values, and spiritual beliefs in a brief span. From toys and games to farming, weaving, or sailing, every step of their growth was tied to survival and community. Each child was seen as a future bearer of family honor and social stability.
When we imagine the Viking Age, ships and raids often come to mind. But behind that image were families raising children prepared to continue their way of life.
The resilience, loyalty, and respect for tradition taught in childhood formed the foundation of Viking society. These young people carried the legacy of the North, ensuring that the stories, customs, and spirit of their people endured across generations. Though separated from us by centuries, the lives of Viking children show that even within a warrior culture, family bonds, learning, and youthful innocence played a vital role in shaping history. Childhood in the North was demanding, but it created the strength and endurance that made the Vikings unforgettable.